So today we are joined by Sarah, and I was going to introduce her, but I will let her do that because I'm sure she can do it a lot better than me. So can you just introduce yourself quickly? Let us know who you are and what you do.
Hi, Leah. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me on this morning. It's a real honor. I am Sarah, and I'm originally from the UK, but currently living in northern Spain. I'm a mom of two boys and advanced yoga teacher, postnatal doula, Thai massage therapist, capoeirista. Um, Basically, I work with women at thresholds, at points of kind of transformation. So, through pregnancy, birth, and now my work is really focused on supporting women through menopause because that's where I'm at. So, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff that you do.
Holding a lot, spinning a lot of plates.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when did you start all this? Was this before kids?
Yeah, so my journey, yeah, I won't go back too far because I know we've got quite a short amount of time, but I'm from the education world. Um, I was a health and well-being consultant for Lambeth, so like a PSHE consultant supporting schools with their healthy schools. So I guess at that point, health and all things wellness and well-being was kind of starting to become more and more on my radar. And it was really because I was really suffering at the time with anxiety and panic attacks, which I'd never had before. But basically, I was completely burnt out and exhausted, burning the candle, both ends, working 80-hour weeks. And so it was kind of, it was then that I realized this can't go on, it just wasn't a sustainable way of life. And me and my boyfriend at the time, we were all set on kind of just saving the money and leaving, quitting the jobs. This was in back in 2012. So we bought a one-way ticket to Mexico. And then the kind of, once I'd healed from the burnout and the stress, someone gave me a yoga mat, and it was kind of like, okay. So I wasn't really into yoga. I'd been to a few classes, but they were more like yoga fusion or yoga lattes, that kind of thing. So I just thought it was some weird exercise. And then I went to my first Ashtanga class in Honduras, and I was like, yeah, I was converted. So with the someone gifting me the mats and then me finding this practice, which was, it gave me the kind of the structure and the consistency in my life that wasn't there, that I so badly needed. Because when you're traveling or backpacking, it ended up being a 4-year trip. When you're rootless in that way, for me, the mats was like, this is my time, this is my sacred space, and I'm going to show up for me every day, no matter what's happening, without fail. And so that was that. And then I trained as a yoga teacher in Peru. Um, yeah, so that's been my journey.
Wow. So can we just talk about how you just uplifted everything and moved to Mexico? Because that's pretty intense. That's pretty that's a very big decision. Did it take you a
Mm,
while to come to that decision, or did you just one day think, I'm just gonna move to
mm.
Mexico?
No, it was a long process. Yeah. Good question. I love that you asked me that. For a long time, I knew that I wanted to travel the world, and it never really happened for me. I'd been on trips like a month here and a month there to Thailand and things like that, but I really wanted to. I've always been interested in other cultures, and I've always known deep down that I wasn't going to live my adult life in the UK. I just kind of felt it. And I was talking with a friend about traveling, but one of my best friends, but she wanted to put a fixed timeline on it, like a 9-month trip, that's it. And I just wanted a complete, like, open-ended trip, flow with it, see what happens. And so my boyfriend, who I'd only been with a few years, he was up for it as well. So, and he was quite a traveler, free spirit. He'd already lived in New Zealand and Australia. So I was 30 at the time when we left. And it didn't go easily, I have to say. It was kind of fraught with all these dramas and kind of obstacles and blocks from the get-go. Like at the airport, they nearly didn't let us on the plane because we didn't have a return ticket. And then I got robbed on a night bus and everything was taken, like passport and everything. But family were saying, guys, you really maybe should think about coming home. And we were like, nah, the worst is over. And then and it was just easy sailing from then on. And then in India, it might be relevant for me to say now, I did a 300-hour yoga teacher training and had no idea. But at the time, I was pregnant with my first boy, my first son. So I just paid to do an intensive kind of month in Mysore with a teacher there, Vijay Kumar. And it was on day 6 of my practice with him, I found out that I was at 17, 18 weeks. So halfway through the pregnancy, wasn't showing at all. And then that was it. It was like, no, Sarah, you can't carry on with your back bends, with your twists. And then we did travel a little bit more. We got back, we came to where I live now because we kind of were thinking ahead. After having the baby, we thought, well, before we have the baby, let's go to Spain because we want to continue learning Spanish. And that's when we first stepped foot here in northern Spain, in Asturias, and fell in love with it straight away. And then, yeah, had the baby
Wow.
literally a few weeks after getting back to London, and moving in together for the first time, in a kind of adult way, not backpacking way or a flat share. And I was just not mentally, emotionally ready for that, for becoming a mom, because I'd not given myself the time and finding out so late. So that kind of informed how I set up my yoga business after that. So yeah.
Yeah. This is an incredible story. So this was your first child, yeah? Because you've got
Mm-hmm.
two.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then did you have your second child in London?
Mm-hmm.
You did.
Yes. Yeah. So the transformative experiences there, I think, as a mom, the birth, the expectations of the birth, the wants and the hopes and the dreams for the kind of birth that you want. Such a turning point. With my first one, I planned a home birth and it didn't happen. And then, hospital intervention, da 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 da. I won't go into that, but basically he from um from kind of not coming into the world in, let's say, not the calmest of ways, he then suffered quite a lot with colic and silent reflux. So we were really struggling, and I found baby yoga, and then I trained to teach as a baby yoga teacher and built a community in 2017 in South London. And then, yeah, went back to India, and there must be something in the water there because accidentally conceived my second. So yeah, the grandparents are like, guys, if you don't want any more, don't go back to India
Yeah.
anytime soon. And yeah, it was both boys, 3 years apart exactly. I had the same due date with them, even though they were both happy accidents. So I think it was around November, Diwali time,
Yeah.
But the second birth was everything I'd hoped for and dreamed for and more. It was a very empowering home birth in the water, and yeah, and that really kind of spiraled my work that I do now with moms.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm loving this story. So did you manage to keep up your yoga practice in the early stages of childhood? Because I know that was definitely a struggle for me when I had
Mm,
mine.
yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's a really valuable, important question, because if I would give myself some serious advice now, if I could give my younger self, my pre-mother, my maiden self, some advice, because I wasn't mentally and emotionally grounded and ready for it, I really carried on like nothing had changed after my first. And there was a bit, even though I was holding space for community, for other mothers, going through the same thing that I was, I wasn't really kind of living and breathing my advice, which was to sleep when baby sleeps, take the rest, give yourself permission to rest, you know. And I was back at my practice with full power. And it was hot yoga, not necessarily, actually not in any way good for a new mom at all, actually,
Mm.
because you know it kind of heats the body outside in, whereas as a mom, as a new mom, you want to be building strength inside out, you know. So I found myself very skinny. Looking at photos from then, you know, I was breastfeeding for about 2 years, and 2.5 years actually, because I was pregnant with my other one and still breastfeeding, and I just didn't look healthy, you know. But it's hard when you're in it. I didn't really realize that there was a bit of an obsession that I had about, you know, getting my body back. I saw it as a
Mhm.
kind of a positive obsession to be doing my practice. I saw it as like, well, this is my time and I need it for my sanity. But looking back now, it was a bit too much. It was too extreme, you know, and actually, the advice I would give to myself or any other women kind of in that fourth trimester, especially, and I managed to do this with the second one. I did nothing for the first 4 months.
Yeah.
It's just really, you're only going to regret, if you look back on that time with your baby, you're only going to regret the time you didn't have with them. You're going to regret not resting more with them, you know, not just being at home and taking things slow and co-sleeping with them. And you know, all the other stuff doesn't matter. What I do regret is that I was just out all the time, you know, at classes and busying myself. So yeah,
Yeah. So when did the shift happen? Like, when did you realize that that's what you were doing and that you needed to slow down?
I only realized when I was pregnant with my second one,
Yeah.
you know, which sometimes that's it. And then had my second and was just like, wow, why? I'm really forcing myself. You know, I was forcing myself with my first, and I was really pushy and kind of not allowing. And yeah, this is leading me on nicely to the closing ceremony that I had. Have you heard of the closing the bones, or have you
I
had one?
haven't. No. As soon as you said that that's what you do, I was like, oh, we've got to talk about that because, yeah, I need to know more about this.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I think it's just such a beautiful, transformative ceremony. Is a therapy. So it's a therapy with shawls that are hand woven traditionally from South America, which obviously I have a big affinity with, you know, Mexico. But also it's indigenous, so Africa, you know, any indigenous tribes still do this, and you see moms just like baby wearing, you know, with the shawls, with they're called rebosos. And this came into my awareness because of my mentor, my mom and baby teacher, who basically trained me to be a mother and baby teacher. And she was talking about this closing ceremony, or la cerrada, so the closing. And I found a doula to come and close me. So I was about 6 weeks postpartum with my second boy, and that experience made me realize how much I was still holding on to, you know, from the first birth, from
Mhm.
all the stuff. So it's like I closed both emotionally and psychologically and spiritually, because they say that when you're pregnant, you are a portal to another dimension. So the closing, it's not just kind of bringing the bones back together physically around the hips, but it's that psychological and spiritual rebirth moment as a mother, you know. So it really helped me in that process of matrescence to just be more patient and loving and compassionate to myself. And then I found it such an incredible, valuable, life-changing experience. And I was like, God, every woman has a right to have this. Every parent, every mother who's gone through birth, you know. So I trained in it, and that was kind of during the pandemic, so it was online. But I've done quite a few closings now, about 10. I've closed about 10 women, and it's beautiful. The whole ceremony lasts about 3 hours, if they choose to have the bath. So there's an option to have a bath, and ideally, if the mother's mother is around, she would be invited in, depending on their relationship, and even the grandmother. um, but so many women, they don't have that
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, or for whatever reason are just not so connected with family. So but it's just kind of helping them feel nurtured and really honoring the new mother as a mother for what she's been through, and seeing her. And I just was like, wow, I feel so seen and validated. And it's hard, isn't it? Being a mom is not really, it's not honored as much as it should be for everything we do as mothers. So yeah.
Definitely. I'm glad you said that you did it online as well, because I was going to ask, is that only an in-person thing? So you do it online. That's obviously helpful for anybody listening who is interested in something like this, because I
Mm.
didn't even know that this was a thing. And I feel like if I did, especially the way that I am, like I love yoga and I love the whole
Mm.
spirituality stuff. If I'd known that this existed, I'd be like,
Mm.
I need that. I need to have one of these.
Yeah, yeah. Let me just clarify. So to actually have the therapy, it is a hands-on thing. You have to be there with the women. So I'm hoping
Okay.
to start doing the closings. I actually did one for a woman, a friend of mine, fairly recently, just last month, who she's not a mother, but it works the same. You don't have to be a mother. It's really beneficial therapy for anyone that's been through PTSD, that has some kind of trauma, because it's just kind of that. So there's a wrapping element to the therapy after the bath. Once the body's been rocked with the shawls, and opened and relaxed, then there's the bath, and then there's the actual closing, and you're kind of bound with 7 shawls around you, and then you're taken through a yoga nidra. So she came to me, she knew that, I do facilitate, and that's the work that I do. And so that was really beautiful. And that was the first closing that I've done for someone that isn't a mother.
Yeah.
But obviously she's in that mother energy, that phase of life anyway. So the training was online, because they did it in such a way that we had to practice online. So we had to have a partner
Got
there,
you.
and it was
Yeah.
very, because it is a hands-on thing, but they found a way to
Yeah.
assess us. I think it was about a 5-day training, and then there was an option after that to go to Mexico and meet up. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Ah, okay. Right. That makes more sense then. So for
Mm.
anyone who's in northern Spain, did you say you were now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then
Correct. Yes.
go and check out Sarah for a closing ceremony for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm glad you said that it's not just for parents then, it's just for anybody who wants to rebirth. Is that, yeah.
That's it. Yeah,
Okay.
completely. It's kind of the shedding of the old self and stepping into a new phase, a new self. And as women, we're always doing that, because we are cyclical beings. We're just constantly
Yeah.
in metamorphosis and transformation. And we have matrescence, and then not every woman goes through matrescence to be a physical mother, but every woman goes through menopause,
Mhm.
which should be known as the final kind of rite of passage for women. And gosh, like, now I'm here realizing that there is just no support, in the same way that I'm sure a lot of mothers feel, where's the support? You have the baby in pregnancy, there's all of the prep, and there's the NCT groups that you can do, and da da da, and then it just drops away, right?
Yeah.
It's, yeah, and that feels even bigger when you get to kind of your mid 40s. So yeah, so that's where I'm placing my energy and focus at the moment, for moms going through menopause or perimenopause.
Yes. Amazing. I was going to say it's nice to see that there's so many women out there now that are doing this kind of coaching for women's health, because I feel like
Mm.
it's like it's all over, isn't it? It's like even when you start your
Yeah.
period as a teenager,
Yeah.
there's not that much support around apart from your
Right.
parents. I mean,
Right.
my mum just passed me a book. Like there's not that much around to help with that.
I
And
know.
then
I was with my dad and he just took me straight to my mom's.
yeah, yeah,
He was
exactly.
like, oh, go home then.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
it. So it's nice to see more people doing stuff
Yeah.
like this. And it's good to know, especially for anybody listening, like no matter what you're struggling with,
Mm.
especially in women's health, I feel like even if you're not struggling, I feel like it's good to have some kind of coaching around whatever stage of life you're in anyway. But there's so many people online that can help with this kind of thing. It's just finding them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what I love about this podcast is I've had so many different people on talking about menopause and periods and
Mm,
women's health. And
mm, mm.
there's all these coaches out there that you can go to for this help. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's absolutely amazing. So one thing I want to ask you is I want to ask about your move from London to Spain. I want to ask
Yeah.
like how that transition happened.
How long have we got?
Carry on. Just carry on.
Okay, so there was the pandemic, which hit when my second was like 6 months. I was literally back to my classes that week. So my maternity pay had finished. I was back out there, opened up my classes, and then that was it. We got locked down. So I took everything online and like many yoga teachers did. And at first it was incredible and I had really big numbers. And then I kind of struggled with that, you know, with the isolation and had a bit of a climate kind of awakening as well, being in London and not being able to get anywhere to connect with nature during the pandemic almost killed me, to be honest. You know, as a new mother, I was just like, I'm going insane. And then I remember trying to get to the sea one day. Where was it? Margate or somewhere. And it took like 3.5 hours each direction, each way. So it was literally kind of this build up of like, no, I just can't be in London anymore, you know? And then we were kind of toying with, well, let's just move to Brighton, right? Because that's what people do, and Brighton feels safe, and it's kind of, but it's more of the same, you know. When we got to the kind of root of it, we realized this isn't our dream, really. It's not dream, it's not plan A, it's plan B, but we just need to be brave enough to do it. So we basically decided we were going to go for it, and we bought a caravan, secondhand caravan, um, towed the caravan all the way through, had to live with my mom for a bit during the pandemic for about 6 weeks. And I was able to keep running mom and baby groups because during the pandemic, those essential services were allowed. And my partner, he works in TV, so he was in Wales working on I'm a Celebrity because he's a director,
Wow.
not director, he's like camera person. And then after he'd finished that job, he came back to meet me, and we towed the caravan to Galicia. So that's where we had a bit of a community already, very small, but really close friend of my partner's was there, and she's bilingual. And we knew, because it was 2 weeks before the withdrawal agreement, that we didn't have much time to get through all the hoops that we needed to get through. Actually, the biggest one was the driving, like getting the driving license changed over. Anyway, it all just flowed, you know. So I took that as a sign of, yeah, we're meant to be here. And we got the cards through. Whereas a lot of my friends who left to move to Ibiza or southern Spain, way before I moved, they never actually got their residency cards because there was such a backlog there. You know, they couldn't process all the applications. So I think it was partly luck, you know, but also partly we wanted to be in the north anyway because we know that it's so green and lush. And okay, the weather is the downside because it's not, well, it's similar to the UK. So if you're looking for sun all year round, you don't get it in the north. But you know, that's what I needed, and I wanted the seasons. And but that's also why we got through the system so quickly, because there weren't any Brits, you know, moving to the north of Spain. So yeah, and then we picked up the cards just by luck, really, on our way out of Galicia, we decided we had to go back to Asturias because it was still, you know, here, as I said before. And we went back and realized, yes, that it is the place for us, and it still resonated. And there was a little bit of to and fro back to London, and moving all the things over, in a process of getting the ferry. And a year and a bit ago, we moved into our dream home, and yeah, it's literally everything that I visioned, you know, with kind of the manifestation work that I've been doing. And we were working very much together on what we wanted from our home. And I keep finding kind of these notes and these lists, and it ticks every single one. So yeah, so we're now in the process of renovating slowly, and you know, bit by bit. But half of the house is that we're living in, it's finished, so it just needed kind of modernizing a little bit. The attached half is a big process, but it's also coming. So we're in process of building a yurt for an outdoor kind of workshop space. We have a horse, we have 4 chickens, 3 cats. They're the worst. The cats are the worst. And yeah, so it's slowly kind of, I'm in this position where I'm running my online community, my membership, that I have carried them over with me from kind of London, and now I'm trying to ground something. I'm trying to ground a new name. So it's my old name, Placerita, Sarah being my name, and Ita, if you know Spanish, means like little Sarah. So that kind of came naturally in Peru when I was doing my first yoga teacher training. So I still have Placerita, but I'm starting to kind of birth the new business, which is called Mama Asturiana. So it's kind of a bigger thing. It's really supporting families and mothers, and more grounded in kind of the land that we're in. And so yeah, the future is quite exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're living the dream. I love everything that you said. And
I
yeah,
mean,
I
it's not easy, you know. I have had moments where I'm
no,
like, oh, be careful what you wish for, because it's a lot. But yeah,
I think
important to
it's
practice.
yeah, definitely. And you know, you
Mm.
can have these dreams of, oh, we'll all like pick up my family and move to Spain and it's all going to be amazing,
Yeah,
but there's always going
yeah,
to be
yeah.
ups and downs. So on that note, for anybody listening who is maybe stuck in an area of their life and they do feel like they need, I guess, like a rebirth, like a closing
Mm,
ceremony. Um, I don't mean that you seem so just go and do it kind of thing. Is there any advice that you would give to somebody
yeah.
listening? That's what I'm trying to say. That is
Mm.
at that moment where they're stuck and they do feel like they need to just rebirth something and go and do something new.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, people say to me that I'm brave for doing it, but to me, it got to the point where it wasn't that. I felt like, very much like, well, you're more brave than me for sticking around, you know. It was just something I felt really called to do. And I would say to anyone listening who is feeling that, the frustration of, yeah, I want to change my life completely, but I don't know what to do, and there's all that fear. Of course I felt the fear, but I did it anyway. um and you never regret it once you kind of take that leap, you know. So I've actually helped a friend move out of London as well, and I think she came to see me and stay with me, and she was quite inspired to move to Wales. And but it's hard because, you know, you have your community and you build it up, especially when there's kids involved. It's like, oh, you don't want to disrupt them. um but I think for us, the timing kind of felt easy because of the pandemic, and there was so much disruption anyway. But I would just say, you know, you only have one life. This isn't there's no kind of test run, is there? Just like, go for it. And if it doesn't work out, then you can always move back.
Yes. Yeah, I always like that. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? You
Yeah,
just have to move back. it's not the end of
Yeah,
the world. At least you've said, you
exactly.
can say that you've tried it and you've done it.
Yeah. I think that's the key, Leah. I think really acknowledging the fears is really important, and going there. You have to go there. You have to be like, okay, and sit with what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst that can happen here? And then you realize it's actually not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
So anybody listening, go and do the thing. Notice what the
Do the
fears are.
thing,
Go and
do
do
the
it.
thing. Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for talking with me today. If anybody would love to follow you, where can they find you on Instagram or whatever else you're on?
Yeah, they can find me at Prasarita Yoga. So that's a P, it's not the catchiest names. It's Prasarita Yoga, Prasarita Yoga. I'm there on Insta, Facebook, and my website, prasarita.co.uk. Yeah.
Amazing. I'll make sure I link everything. So if anyone has any questions for Sarah, feel free to give her a message. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Leah. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.